Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Mabhid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so let's see if we can share the screen. Here we go, April 27th. Oh, we have something different today. Concepts from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Patanjali defines yoga in verse 2. And the question for you is, what is Patanjali's definition? Yoga is the. Yoga is the restraint of mental activities. Most individuals who talk to me about their efforts to do so have difficulty accomplishing this. It's generally 80%, maybe 80% of the individuals, not our members, 80% of individuals who talk to me about meditation say the same thing. I sit down to meditate and I can't control my thoughts. What should I do? As if there was an easy solution. Fortunately, Patanjali does give a suggestion as to how to succeed. What is his suggestion? The restraint of these mental activities is achieved through practice and dispassion. So practice in Sanskrit is abhyasa. Dispassion is vairagya. So abhyasa and vairagya. If the question was asked, how do we make progress in restraining mental activities? A common answer given would be practice. This verse is pointing out that in addition to practice, the other important component is dispassion, vairagya. In other words, the reason many of these mental activities are occurring is because of our attraction toward someone or something, as well as our aversion. So it could be a positive attraction or a negative attraction, which is an aversion. We dislike someone and we can't stop thinking about them. Aversion. The subsequent verses further elucidate. Practice is the exertion to achieve steadiness in the state of restraint. That means no thoughts. But this practice becomes firmly grounded only after it has been cultivated uninterruptedly and with devotion for a long time. Oh, long time. And uninterruptedly for a long time. If we interrupt it, it takes even longer. Dispassion is the knowledge of mastery of one who is without thirst for objects that are seen or heard about. The supreme state of dispassion is the non-thirsting for the gunas, which arises from the perception of the Purusha. So we'll see what we say about that later. Clearly, the expectation that success in meditation will come quickly is incorrect. Not only does practice need to be for a long time, but done without interruption and with devotion. As to dispassion, it increases through attenuating the kleshas of ignorance, attraction, and aversion, through the regular practice of Kriya Yoga. One reason practice needs to be done for a long time is that a changing of the subconscious mind is involved, and the subconscious changes slowly. This involves the concept of samskaras. What are samskaras in this context? Samskaras are imprints left on the subconscious mind by experience from this or previous lives. Gurudeva explains, all actions, reactions, and pranic patterns from one life carry forward into the next, but in condensed or seed form as tendencies. So we don't have the actual memory. We have a tendency based upon what we did. Swami Shivananda, Divine Life Society founder, makes a similar statement. All samskaras lie dormant in the chitta, mind, as latent activities, not only of this life, but of all previous innumerable lives. He then gives an analogy for the condensing process. As a merchant closing the year's ledger and opening a new one does not enter in the new all the items of the old, but only its balances, so does the spirit hand over to the new brain his judgments on the experiences of a life that is closed, the conclusions to which he has come, the decisions to which he has arrived. This is the stock handed on to the new life, the mental furniture for the new dwelling, a real memory. Samskaras are also activators, constantly propelling consciousness into action. In this regard, they are described as subliminal activators. Restraint transformation is when the externalizing samskaras are subjugated by the appearance of restraint samskaras. These emerge in the mind at the moment of restraint. A tranquil flow of consciousness is produced by these restraint samskaras. In other words, whenever restraint is employed, meaning whenever we are successfully controlling our thoughts, that's what restraint means, new samskaras are generated which subjugate the externalizing ones. So we're changing the subconscious slowly. Restraint samskaras influence the mind to be without mental activity, therefore remain in a tranquil state. So slow process. Changing the externalizing samskaras, that which causes us to automatically think about the external world, with restraint samskaras, which allows us just to be peaceful inside ourselves. Another source of samskara transformation from externalizing in worldly to internalizing in spiritual is from mystical insights that come along through deeper meditation. The scope of this mystical insight is distinct from the insight gained from scripture and inference owing to its particular purposiveness. It's a hard word, purposiveness. The samskara born from that mystical insight obstructs the other samskaras. So that's our intuition. Whenever we have an intuition, it creates a samskara that also helps offset the externalizing ones. Gurudeva comments on changing the subconscious. After the subconscious mind has been very, very carefully reprogrammed into the contemplative lifestyle, there is little difference to us between the subconscious and the superconscious intuitional states. Therefore, basically, we have moved our awareness into an entirely new mind structure, or at least it seems new to us. This is called the sub-superconscious mind, or the area of the superconscious that has a subconscious which is connected with the physical body functions and everyday life affairs. So sub-superconscious is connected to those. Superconscious is just in a realm all by itself. Doesn't know anything about the physical body or everyday affairs. The The sub-superconscious state is the total man functioning at a higher vibratory rate than he did when in the instinctive intellectual area. What is the sub-superconscious mind? It is the subconscious of the devotee, well programmed in the contemplative life. This devotee can work with himself and move awareness freely through any area of the mind that he wants to, consciously, without being hindered by habit patterns and reactionary conditions of the past, which were programmed in the subconscious for him by parents, school teachers, friends, and the public in general as he came along through life from birth. Thank you, Gurudeva, for such a great sentence there. So we're remolding the subconscious, and that takes time. That's why individuals don't necessarily succeed at meditation. They're not starting with the basics of remolding the subconscious through a contemplative life. The next slides describe the concept of sadhana and the performance of a daily vigil as explained by Gurudeva in the Master Course Trilogy. How would you define sadhana? Our Himalayan Academy lexicon defines sadhana as effective means of attainment. That's the literal meaning. Self-effort, spiritual discipline, the way. Religious or spiritual disciplines such as puja, yoga, meditation, japa, fasting, and austerity. The idea of achieving an attainment is an important aspect of the concept of sadhana. In other words, it is not referring to an occasional spiritual practice, but rather one that is done regularly. Therefore, sadhana can also be described as a steady and persevering practice of a method or exercise prescribed for spiritual ends. That's a good definition. A steady and persevering practice of a method or exercise prescribed for spiritual ends. The term sadhana marga, coined by Yoga Swami, conveys the nature of the seriousness of the practice of sadhana. The lexicon defines sadhana marga as a path of intense effort, spiritual discipline, and consistent inner transformation, as opposed to theoretical and intellectual learning. Effective sadhana is the building of willpower and the building of faith and confidence in oneself and in God, gods, and Guru. Sadhana harnesses and transmutes the instinctive intellectual nature, allowing progressive spiritual unfoldment into the superconscious realizations and innate abilities of the soul. And next question, how does the daily vigil relate to sadhana? From Gurudeva's point of view. Gurudeva explains how the daily vigil relates to sadhana. To give sadhana a place in your life, you must establish a daily vigil. Oh, that's Gurudeva. It doesn't give us a choice. You must establish a daily vigil. The ideal time is early in the morning, just after bathing, before you start to think about the activities of the day and your various responsibilities and plans. Otherwise, once you start that, if you try and do your sadhana, you have to quiet all that down. So this avoids needing to quiet all of that down if you do it before you even turn it on. A vigil held at the same time every day is an excellent way to budget the necessary time for sadhana in our busy modern times. Here is the traditional pattern from Gurudeva. Each day hundreds of millions of Hindus awaken for the last fifth of the night, bathe, don fresh clothing, apply sectarian marks called tilaka, and sit in a clean, quiet place for religious disciplines. Facing east or north, The devotional puja rites of bhakti yoga are performed. Hatha yoga, hymn singing, japa and chanting are often included. Then follow scriptural study and meditation, listening to the sound current and contemplating the moon-like inner light. The duly initiated practice advanced yogas, but only as directed by their guru. Through the day, karma yoga, selfless religious service, is performed at every opportunity. Besides these yogas of doing, Hindus practice the central yoga of being, living a joyful, positive, harmonious life. And moving on to our second topic, 64 character qualities from our workbook. Punctuality, 46 character quality. How would you define punctuality? The workbook gives this definition. Punctuality means being prompt and keeping to schedules. I strengthen it by arriving on time, completing my duties without delay, and not lagging behind or procrastinating. The opposite is tardiness. So I jokingly say that procrastination is the least appreciated character quality. Why is that? Because nobody else is there to know that you arrived on time. Gurudevas. Once the Satguru has asked for penance, the penance must be performed exactly according to his instruction. It should be done with full energy and without delay. Deliberate delay or refusal to perform the penance shows the devotee has rejected the assistance of the Satguru. To resolve a conflict between husband and wife, lest it affect the lives of the children by being postponed into forgetfulness, it must be done before sleep. There is no other way. Okay, and somehow the slide on reflection is missing, so the idea is reflect to see if there's ways you could improve in punctuality. Third topic, quotes from Yoga Swami's words of our master. If you remain summa, i.e. idle, without working, the mind will become impure. But the summa of yanis is different. What does that mean to you? Strikes me is we need to have a positive routine to follow even on our days off, or if we are temporarily without a job. We need to lift our energies in this way on a daily basis. So a day off doesn't mean a day we do nothing. It just means we have a different schedule. But we need to lift our energies even on our days off by a positive routine. When worldly attachment and impurity of the mind disappear, then there is Atma Darshan. What does that mean to you? So here are two slides of mine that explain this idea. An analogy I like to use to illustrate finding truths of Hinduism. Imagine a pond of water with gold nuggets at the bottom. The surface of the pond has ripples due to a wind, or the pond itself is cloudy Due to the presence of mud, the gold nuggets at the bottom of the pond cannot be seen from above. They are there, hidden from view. The ripples on the surface represent the agitated intellect. The cloudy water is a cluttered subconscious mind, and the gold nuggets at the bottom are the precious truths, or the Atma. To find these truths, we need to have a quiet intellect and a pure or subconscious. To achieve this requires serious spiritual striving, ideally under the guidance of a guru. Oh, that's the last one. Thank you very much.